everyone. Welcome back. This is Renee Barham Gordon, your friendly regulated Canadian immigration consultant from Mere Immigration Consulting Inc., making every interaction admirable. So I just want to thank you guys for subscribing, liking, and sharing our videos. And if it is your first time tuning into our channel, I'm just inviting you to pause, hit the subscribe button, and follow us also on Facebook and on our Instagram at Mia Immigration. So again, just hit the subscribe button before you continue. Thank you. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing study permits overall and studying and settlement opportunities in Canada. So this was a part of our MIA interaction sessions where we discussed how persons can transition from being a student into becoming a permanent resident. So in our presentation, we're going to be looking at our targets. We're going to be discussing a little about MIA, just giving an overview about the company. It's not much. What a study permit is, who can apply, how to apply, work, how do you work and study, how do you work after studying, as well as settlement opportunities. So MIA Immigration is a small company here based in Mississauga in Ontario. We are a licensed, registered, and regulated Canadian company. We are regulated by the Immigration Consultants of Canada Regulatory Council. All the information about that and how to check our credentials can be found on our website at www.miaimmigration.com on our About Us page. Okay, going into our mission. Our mission is using tangible and intangible resources to provide the highest quality of immigration representation for our clients while making every interaction admirable. So you see where our mantra comes from, right? And then our vision is to be the immigration company of choice for our clients whose intention is to be represented impartially. So we don't discriminate, we don't give preference because of your situation. The only thing we do is deal with you according to your unique situation in terms of what you would need to put forward to the IRCC. Just to let you know also, our company is headed by myself, as I stated before, a regulated Canadian immigration consultant and a managing director. We do have operations and IT manager. We have our admin support, as well as our immigration coordinators, or some may know them as immigration agents. If it is that you know anybody who is interested also to become an immigration coordinator, feel free to make contact with us after the presentation or send us an email at info@miaimmigration.com to express your interest or the individual's interest. So we will be looking at our partners and association. On the left of your screen, that's the ICCRC, Immigration Consultants of Canada Regulatory Council. That's the body who governs us. As I stated earlier, we are a regulated company. We partner also with Olds College, KPIC, ALS referral agents is for individuals who are online, who are from Canada, wishing to sit the ALS exam. You can book through our website, as also contact us for us to guide you along the process. And we are also an associate of myconsultant.ca. So we will be going into the meat of the matter. What is a study permit? Well, according to the Immigration and the Refugees Protection Regulation, Section 216, or Regulation 216 rather, a study permit is a document issued by the Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada for foreign nationals to study at a designated learning institution.
I will be speaking more about a designated learning institution and why is studying at a designated learning institution very important. Here you have a sample of a study permit. It is just a letter-sized document. It is not a visa. And that is to be noted when you are granted approval for a study permit. This is the document that you will get on entry in Canada. So when you arrive at the port of entry, that's the document you would get. And again, it is not a visa. It only gives you permission to study at a designated learning institution, which is also known as a DLI. And what is a DLI? A DLI are schools that are approved by a territory or province to host international students. So again, please make note of this if you are definitely interested in studying in Canada. You want to ensure you're searching for schools that are designated learning institutions because those are the schools that are permitted to accept international students for study. So who can apply for a study permit? The list, just to let you know again, guys, because of time, some information here is not in its entirety in terms of the list. So when I say who can apply, I just took out the ones that would likely be relevant to persons who are online now, but yes, there are other individuals who may be able to apply. So very first thing is one, an individual who is accepted at a designated learning institution. So you want to apply to a school. Say, for example, you had applied to one of our partner, Olds College. You applied for a program, you got accepted, and then you would use that acceptance letter to submit your application to the IRCC for your study permit. Another one, if you already have a valid study permit or work permit. So persons may be like at this point, why do I need a study permit if I already have one, right? Or why do I need a study permit if I want to work? Well, two things. One, if you already have a study permit, a valid study permit to be exact, and you want to extend your study in Canada, so you want to pursue another course, or let's say your study permit expired prior to your actual study expiring, then at that point you would need to extend your study permit. So let me go again. You currently have a study permit, but let us say your studies are going to be finishing in December, but your study permit for some reason expired or it will be expiring in October. You will need to extend your study permit in order to be able to continue your study. Another set of individuals who can apply are persons who have a common law partner or their spouse or a parent who has a valid study permit already in Canada or a work permit in Canada. So for minors, to be exact, somebody who is a minor, so there are quite a few adults coming to Canada wanting to study who have kids. Those children can, yes, apply for a study permit. If they are outside of Canada, if they're already in Canada, you would apply for a visitor record and then they would be able to pursue studies at secondary or primary institution. Again, those would be for minors. Your spouse or common law partner, yes, if you have a study permit or a work permit and you're already in Canada, your spouse can actually apply for a study permit. And one more thing to look at is if you have completed a short-term course, so let us say you did a course that is a prerequisite for another course. So you want to do a diploma or a bachelor's, but you have prerequisites in order to pursue those courses, then you would be able to apply for a study permit because you would be able to show to IRCC that you have met or have the prerequisite for the actual program that you want to pursue. However, bear in mind the program that you want to pursue, you will definitely also need the acceptance letter from the institution where you will be pursuing that course of study. In continuing, a spouse or a parent who has a child or someone who has a temporary resident permit, not to be confused with a temporary resident visa, their spouse or their child can apply also for a study permit. What is a temporary resident permit? I'm just going to give a brief detail of what this is. If somebody is inadmissible to come to Canada, or they're in Canada and breach their conditions of study or breach whatever it is, if you were a visitor or at work and you breached your conditions and for some reason you're found inadmissible, you may be able to apply for a temporary residence permit. And if granted this, and it is 6 months or more, then your family member, your spouse or child, would be able to apply for a study permit. Additionally, a sponsored person. So for this one, let's say you have a spouse in Canada who wants to sponsor you to come to Canada, and they have, or who has already sponsored you rather, to come to Canada, and they submitted a sponsorship application on your behalf. But IRCC is taking a bit of time, given now it's COVID, processing times are being extended. You now want to say, you know what, I don't want to wait until this comes through. I want to study. You can apply for a study permit, but what I would suggest here, again, it's not legal advice, but because everybody's situation is different and your timing is different depending on how soon you want to come to Canada. However, if you should apply to come to Canada in this regard, bear in mind you will be charged as an international student. You're likely going to be charged as an international student, and the costs are going to be more. Your tuition is going to be way more than if you were a permanent resident or citizen. All right, so you may want to wait until you actually get your permanent residency to pursue studies. Additionally, you may be able to take advantage of government loans to pursue your studies if it is you are a permanent resident. And of course, in everything, we have exemptions. There are individuals who may not require a study permit to study in Canada. And so we have the list here, but I'll just go through them one by one. Persons who are pursuing studies that are less than 6 months, or better yet, 6 months or less. So let us say you came to Canada as a visitor and you decided you want to do a 4-week course or an 8-week course. As long as it is under 6 months or 6 months or less, you should be able to attend classes and pursue your studies without applying for a study permit. If you're the family member of a diplomat or a consular, for example, you would not need to apply for a study permit as well, because Canada and the designated countries have an agreement that would allow these family members to pursue studies. So this would not be wide in the sense that as long as you're a diplomat, yes, there are specific situations under which this would happen, pardon me, but you would ensure that if your family member rather is a diplomat or consulate, then you would not necessarily require a study permit. If your family member is a member of the armed forces, and this is where I said designated countries rather. So there, Canada and countries, some countries have some agreements. So not everybody who is a member of an armed force would be considered eligible in this regard. There is a list on the Canada.ca website where if a member is here on official business, of course, and they would list out under what circumstances those individuals would be able to study without having a study permit. And according to the IRPA, which is the Immigration and Refugees Protection Act, Section 30, a minor, so again, somebody who is here in Canada on a study permit or a work permit and has a child who is a minor, the age for minors varies from province to province. Some provinces are 18 years old, some provinces are 19 years old. It varies. As long as the individual will be studying at a secondary or primary institution, then your child would be able to study in Canada without requiring a study permit if they're already here. If it is you're on a visitor visa, however, and in Canada, unfortunately, your child would not be able to study without a study permit. So we will be now looking at how do you apply for a study permit. There are a few things that you're gonna need when applying for a study permit. You need one, acceptance from a designated learning institution. And I would have said what a designated learning institution is. However, for the benefit of those who came on afterwards, a designated learning institution is a school that is approved by a territory or province to allow foreign nationals study in Canada, right? So you would apply to school. Again, I'm going to use Olds College as an example. You apply to Olds College for a particular program, you got accepted. You have to use that job letter in addition to other documents and forms to put your application forward, to submit an application to IRCC. Of course, you are going to need a passport, and you want to ensure your passport has at least 6 months for them to grant you a visa. If it is so that it's very unlikely that you would get a study permit or get approved for a study permit. So you want to ensure that you have some time on your visa as well, on your passport as well, or sorry, rather. Financial statement. Some persons would be like, oh, what if somebody is sponsoring me? Because I would get that from time to time. If it is that somebody is sponsoring you, fine, because we do have young individuals who are persons who their parent is sponsoring them, a sibling is sponsoring them, a friend, a workplace, whoever it is. It doesn't matter who is sponsoring you, but you would have to show your proof of funds and your financial statement as to show that you are able to cover your stay whilst in Canada. Just to let you know, you are gonna be required to show $10,000. We're getting a bit of feedback. Okay, you are gonna be required to have at least $10,000 for each academic year of study, plus your first year tuition. So let us say you're pursuing a diploma that is a 2-year program, or a master's that is likely a 2-year program. You have to show $20,000 upfront plus the cost of your first year tuition. So you need to bear that in mind, and that must be shown when you're submitting your application to IRCC. Okay, some of the forms that you will need when submitting your application is the IMM 1294 if it is you're outside Canada. If you're inside Canada, the IMM 5709, because it's likely now the fact that you're in Canada, you're either extending your status or you're extending your stay or changing your status, right? So you would either come to Canada or you came to Canada as a student, as a visitor, as a worker, and you either want to extend your stay as a student or you want to change your status from visitor to student. Your family information form is going to be needed also. That's the IMM 5645, as well as the IMM 5476. However, this is only if you're using a representative. For example, you hired us, MIA Immigration, to put your application forward or submit an application on your behalf in order to get a study permit. You would be required to fill out the 5476 form. However, it's not much information because if we're doing it for you, you would basically sign because we would already put in the relevant information for you. In continuing, however, there are other documentations that are required when submitting your application. You will need supporting documents for it. And as you see, I have here marriage certificate, employment letter. I mean, maybe that you need an enrollment letter from the school that you're currently attending because it depends on the reason you are coming to Canada to study. So your supporting documents vary. When you're creating your IRCC account, you would get a document checklist as to what is required and what is expected to be uploaded. So you should not rather leave out any document. If it is that we are doing this for you, you could ignore this slide because then we would tell you, we would create your account and we would upload the document for you. However, for persons who are interested in doing it on their own, they want to pay much attention to this section, right? Submission letter from RCIC, as you see where I have very important. Reason is, for some persons, they may upload it as an explanation letter. If it is that you are using a representative, say for example, Mia, we submit a submission letter with all applications we submit to the IRCC. And this is because we explain to the visa officer why is it this person should get a study permit, on what grounds are they eligible as well as admissible to come to Canada and pursue their studies. So we just have it there. Again, if it is you're doing it on your own, you wouldn't need it. However, if we're doing it for you, we give you a submission letter. Just to let you know also, let us say you decided that you want to do it on your own, but you want us to write the cover letter for you. We do that as well. That would be a separate service than if it is we're doing the entire application for you. So yes, you can upload your documents on your own. You can create your account on your own, and we would provide you with a submission letter. But bear in mind, we would have to see your documentation as to what is it you're uploading, so that your information and the information we're putting forward for you is correct and in sync. After having all these documents and your submission letter, your forms and everything, you would next create your IRCC account, upload the documents, and then of course, submit your application. Upon submitting your application, you will be advised then to pay your study permit fee as well as your biometrics fee. If it is you created the account on your own, you would know in advance prior to uploading the documents how much it is that you would need to pay, because not everybody is required to pay biometrics fee. If you did a biometrics within 10 years, your biometrics would still be valid. So you would not pay the biometrics fee, but you would only pay the study permit fee. So now, work and study. How do we get back all this expense? Because as international students, it is not as cheap or as affordable, I would say, as the somebody who is a permanent resident or a citizen to study. Not to say that international students can't afford study, but when you just look at the difference between an international student and a domestic student, the cost varies greatly, right? But there are advantages. When you come to Canada to work, to study, you can work as well. However, there are conditions because you are able to work on campus and you're able to work off campus. When you're working on campus, you don't need a work permit. If it is you are working in Canada, you need a work permit. But if you are studying rather on campus, you don't need a work permit to work there. What you would do is, because the campus would have their own jobs rather, or certain professions or certain categories. For example, if you're a teacher on campus, so you're a student, but you're a teacher at the same time and you're working on campus, then you wouldn't need a work permit. And there are also other job categories that you wouldn't require a work permit if it is you're working on campus whilst being a student. Of course, you have to have a valid study permit, that goes without saying, because your first reason for being in Canada is being a student. You would, of course, have to be accepted at a DLI, and you can work above 20 hours when you work on campus, as opposed to when you're working off campus. When you're working off campus, you work, yes, in whatever job category you want according to the conditions on your study permit. For persons who were online before would see the sample of the study permit I showed. When you receive your study permit at the port of entry, it would show you it would list what your conditions are. So it would say where you can work or where you can't work, what type of employment you can engage in or what you can't engage in. So if you're accepted at a DLI, you wouldn't need to apply for an additional work permit. All you would apply for is your study permit, and it shows the conditions where and in what category you can work. If it is you're a full-time student, of course, you can work off campus. Part-time, there's an exception. Part-time students are able to work off campus if it is that their last semester of study is say one course, for example, but they would have to get the permission from the school to say that, yes, my school is winding down. I only have one semester left and I only have one course left, for example. On that grounds, part-time individuals would, because at that time now you'll be considered part-time and not full-time, although you were initially enrolled as a full-time student. Of course, your study program has to be 6 months or more. You must be pursuing studies that is above 6 months. You are limited, however, to 20 hours in class. So unlike working on campus, you can work above 20 hours. When you're working off campus, you are limited to 20 hours. For example, September to December, January to May. However, when you have winter breaks or summer breaks, we classify them as a scheduled breaks. At that time, you can work above 20 hours. It is very important that you do not breach your study permit. If it is you're working while going to classes, ensure you stay within your 20 hours or less. Reason being, this will affect you later on when you're ready to either extend your stay, or if it is you want to change your status, whatever it is, it will affect your stay because they will likely tell you that you did not obey the conditions of your study permit. So that is very critical to know. Now, we all want to know, we have discussed what is a study permit, how do you apply for a study permit, how do you work while studying, how do you upload your documents and stuff like that. Now we're going to be looking at how working after studying. We are going to be discussing postgraduate work permit. This is working after studying, right? And what we're looking at here is that how do you become a how do you rather get a postgraduate work permit? One, we have them listed out here, full-time student, 8 months or more, 180 days, but I'm gonna do them one by one for you to have a clear understanding of what it is that you can do, or how is it you can get a postgraduate work permit. When I discussed earlier on applying to a designated learning institution, you have designated learning institutions that offer postgraduate work permits, and you have designated learning institutions that don't offer postgraduate work permits. You want to ensure that the school you're applying to offers a postgraduate work permit, and for short, I'm just going to refer to it as GWP, right? You have to ensure that you are applying for a postgraduate work permit. Reason being, after studying, if it is that the program you selected does not have a postgraduate work, if the school you selected doesn't offer postgraduate work permit, you would not be able to work after studying in Canada unless you're given a job offer or something else, or fall in some other category. Again, you must be a full-time student. Part-time is exceptional and it will be under the same circumstances as I said before, but you must have been a full-time student when you were studying in Canada. Your study program has to be 8 months or more at a DLI, and you must have applied, or you have to apply at least 180 days after completing school. What does this mean? If it is you studied, so you applied, you did your courses, everything, and you did your last exam or you did your final coursework, if the school sends you an email to say, for example, Renee, you have completed your studies, here is your final grade, a transcript will be sent to you at a later date, or here is your transcript, that will be considered, that communication will be considered your official communication from your school. And at that point, your 180 days starts. If it is you did not apply within that 180 days, you would likely have to leave Canada and apply for the postgraduate work permit at that time. Or if it is you didn't change your status from student to visitor, you would now have to apply to change your status and then apply for the postgraduate work permit. 8 months or more, I'm going to discuss that again further on. Why is it you may want to go over 8 months? That should be coming up in the next slide. If it is you did not work beyond the authorized hours, you would be fine. So when I said before, work within the time that you are supposed to whilst in classes or unscheduled breaks, if you exceed these hours, it will come back to hurt you when you're ready to either apply for permanent residency or to change your status, to extend your status, because you would not have met the conditions of your stay. Of course, you would need a valid passport. This is very critical again. If it is you're applying for a postgraduate work permit, and let us say you only have a month on your passport, or 6 months rather on your passport, but you could have gotten a postgraduate work permit that is 8 months or a year or 3 years. If it is that you don't have the amount of time on your passport that you would want for the PGWP, the IRCC would say to you whether or not you're able to extend your PGWP, because what they will likely do is grant you the PGWP according to the length of your passport, and they would only say to you whether or not you are eligible or you may apply for the extension when your passport is expired, or if rather your your initial PGWP expires. Continuing, 8 months study equals to 8 months postgraduate work permit. What does this mean? If it is that your program of study is 8 months, and guys, you need to look out for this when you're applying for schools. Many schools, or most schools rather, you will see it says 2 semesters or 1 year. Most times it's not one full calendar year, it's only 8 months, because a semester most times is just 8 to 5 months. And a semester for the most part is 4 to 5 months. So you want to ensure that you're applying for a school that has at least 1 year study, if it is that you want at least a 1 year postgraduate work permit. If your program of study was only 8 months, after studying, you may be eligible for an 8 months postgraduate work permit. It does not mean that you will get an 8 months postgraduate work permit, but that's what you would be eligible for, as long as you have met the conditions of your study permit, right? You can also combine your study programs. If it is, let us say you did an 8 months program first, and then you did a 1 year program afterwards, then you're looking at 12 months plus 8 months. So you're looking at a 20-month study. At that point, you would be able now to apply for an extended postgraduate work permit, as in a postgraduate work permit, which is over 1 year. If it is that your program of choice, however, is 2 years or more, you will be eligible for a 3-year postgraduate work permit. And if you realize, what I have in blue, and it was on the screen for a while, offered once in a lifetime, you cannot apply. Well, you can apply for a postgraduate work permit more than once. However, you will be refused on the second go, because a postgraduate work permit is only offered once in your lifetime. And that is why you don't want to get a postgraduate work permit that is only 8 months. Because if it is you decide that you want to apply for permanent residency, or it is that you want to apply for a provincial program, something of the sort, we're going to be getting to that in the next slide. This will affect you, because your work in Canada now would have only been 8 months work experience, and applying for permanent residency, most programs, you need at least 1 year work experience. If it is you're applying under certain categories, if you're applying, say, Canadian experience class, you need 1 year work experience in Canada. If you work only for 8 months, if you work 11 months, you will not be classified as an individual who did a 1 year work experience in Canada. So please be mindful of that. The 2 years, and that's where the combination comes in. So let us say for some reason you just wanted to leave your home country and you wanted to just study right away. My suggestion would be, depending on your situation again, and again, it's not legal advice, but it's something that you can consider. If it is you have applied for an 8 months program, and you want to have work experience in Canada, don't apply for your postgraduate work permit immediately after your first 8-month study program. Pursue another course, whether it's another 8 months or another year, whatever it is, in order for you to be able to extend your to have an extended time on your postgraduate work permit. And again, this is offered once in a lifetime. So we are here winding down to the end of our presentation. We are going to be looking at now settlement opportunities. So some individuals come to Canada, and decide that, hey, okay, I want to study and go back home. Some individuals, on the other hand, want to study and stay. Not everybody wants to stay in Canada. Some want to stay. Based on my knowledge, majority of the individuals who come here want to stay in Canada and eventually become a permanent resident or a citizen. If this is your desire, yes, you want to look at this information or listen to this information that will be coming up. Express entry. Most individuals who transition from students, or most immigrants, foreign nationals who transition from students to permanent residents will likely fall under the express entry umbrella, right? And we want to be mindful of this. With everything that I said before, you want to know what the differences are, how you would be able to become a permanent resident if it is your transitioning. Under the express entry umbrella, I'm just going to bring up the different programs that are available. You have the federal skilled worker, you have the federal skills trade, you have provincial nominee programs, and you have the Canadian experience class. You want to be mindful of which category you're likely going to fall under when you have completed your studies and completed your postgraduate work permit, because it would help you to set a path or chart your path from the get-go as to what is it you're going to study, where you're going to study also, and how you're going to pursue those studies, because different programs have different requirements. Express entry is a point-based system. Of course, our other session coming up on the 22nd, we're going to go in depth with that. But for now, we're just going to do a brief discussion. Express entry is a point-based system. You're given points for your age, for what's called adaptability. That's if you studied in Canada, if you worked in Canada, if you have relatives in Canada, it varies. These different factors, your work experience, your education, your language, and that will speak to IELTS or SELP, depending on where you are, depending if you're in Canada, outside Canada, what country you're in. The most popular one, though, is IELTS. That's the International English Language Testing System. You are graded or given points for those categories, right? For different areas, and you want to ensure that you meet these requirements in order to apply for permanent residency. As the federal skilled worker, some countries may wonder and think that, oh, a skilled worker, who is that? Let me say, a police officer, a teacher, a banker, an accountant, it varies. Those individuals are classified as skilled workers, and you have different classifications, or what they call national occupational classifications, as to what categories you may fall under. Federal skills trade, you're looking at butchers, agricultural workers, cooks, chefs, mark you. These individuals can also fall under the federal skilled worker category. However, the federal skills trade program is a specific group of individuals. You're looking at persons who are doing electrical and construction trades, natural resources. It varies, different individuals in those categories. And yes, it could be that you're a supervisor. It depends. on which category you fall under and what group you fall under also. But for the federal skills trade, you would have had to have a job offer in Canada or have what is called a certificate of qualification in that specific trade in order to be eligible for that. On to the provincial nominee programs. As you can see, the provincial flag surrounds the Canadian flag because it all boils back to IRCC granting you permanent residency here, but there are different provincial programs that you can be eligible for if it is you decide to study in a particular province, because each province have their own economic programs. Canada has over 80 odd economic programs where persons can use to transition to become a permanent resident. So you may want to look at what province it is. For example, Alberta. For some provinces, you're looking at what is called a comprehensive ranking system points of 400 upwards to be selected and get what is called an invitation to apply for permanent residency. However, Alberta, on the other hand, you just need at least 300 points to be eligible for their provincial program. But this will be discussed in our next session on the 22nd, but it's just to let you have an idea of how you transition. And finally, we are on the Canadian Experience class program. The Canadian Experience class, you after your studies, you want to ensure that you have work experience in Canada, and this is where I had discussed earlier about the PGWP and ensuring that you get a postgraduate work permit that is at least 1 full year, as in 12 months, because if it is under 12 months, you won't be qualified for the Canadian Experience class because you need at least 1 year work experience. So these are some of the programs, or these are the main programs rather, that you would use to be able to transition from being a student to become a permanent resident in Canada. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. I am done.
So again, subscribe, like, share our videos, and thank you for making it Mia while we continue making every interaction admirable. Bye.